From Wilmington, California, Chris Elmore, fifth place.
What is going on, folks? Welcome to my recap for Ironman 70.3 North Carolina. I am home from Wilmington. Got home late last night. The race was on Saturday. Raced, had a unbelievable race, which I will go into. Stayed for awards and for the slot handout for World Championships. Then had to head back to my place, get the bike torn down, packed up, all my gear ready, because the following morning I had to drive a little over 2 hours back from Wilmington to Raleigh, North Carolina, and get on a plane and fly home. And when I got home last night into LA, unfortunately, my bike made it the first leg to Atlanta, but for some reason, it did not get on the plane from Atlanta to LA, but it was delivered this afternoon. So I am opening it up now, and I figured as I take care of all of this stuff, get it out, put the bike together, because I don't have a ton of footage from the race, figure I'll do some of this as I recap what happened on Saturday. That's better. I think my hair was a mess. So I'll kick this off by just saying that I had an unbelievable time in North Carolina, doing a little work leading into the race, then getting there early, getting to do some training around Wrightsville, and then getting to go down to Wilmington. That was all fabulous. The actual race itself, the logistics of packet pickup and all of those things, it was really well put together, in my opinion, getting to check in, getting all the gear. This race does require a lot more logistics than many 70.3s. I will say that. When the swim starts in one place, ends in another, and then there's a transition there, and then you ride your bike basically 56 miles away to downtown Wilmington, where there is a transition there. And then you do the run, getting your stuff to each location. Where you stay is really important. The fact that I stayed down by the swim start was great, but I needed to take my bike to T1, which was not very far because it was just on the other side of the bridge. But I also had to get all my run gear downtown. And then when I finished the race that day, I was downtown with my bike. And if you're there alone, you've got to figure out how to get your car from wherever you were staying downtown. So you need to either drive all the way downtown that morning, then take a shuttle from there to T1, get all of your stuff ready on your bike, then take another shuttle from T1 to the swim start. So there's a lot going on with that race logistically. I would say that's probably the one downside to this. So if you're traveling alone, if you don't rent a car, I met a guy at bag check-in or at T1 transition check-in, you're checking in your bike and all of that. He still had his run bag, and it was 4:35. He was trying to get an Uber to get a half hour away downtown to get his bag checked in. I hope he got it done, but just logistically, getting from point to point, you almost have to have a car there or somebody there, with a car, because you're not going to be able to just ride share it everywhere, trying to get your bike around, trying to get to all these locations. From the swim and the bike transition to downtown is about 30 minutes away. So you got to deal with that. There's no real way around that. But beyond that, beyond the logistics, the race was amazing. All of the staff, all the volunteers, I had a great time. No complaints about any of that. My wetsuit is still very damp 2 days later, unfortunately. So I'm going to hang this out to dry, and I will wash it off when I am done here. But quick special thanks to Synergy, who is one of my supporters, and I love their gear. I have been using their gear long before I started working with them, but just a huge shout out to them for all of their support. Now, as far as the swim went, I had a great swim. This swim did have some current. Now, I would say it didn't have a lot of current compared to a race I have done previously, which is the Oregon 70.3 in Salem. That race has a current. You can really just float and it will pull you down river in a low 20-minute swim. I believe I swam that in 18 minutes in the past. So that is a very current assisted swim. Typically, I would say I am my PR in a non-current or non-river swim is 30:01. 1 second I was off by hitting a sub 30-minute swim. This swim I did in 25 minutes and 56 seconds. So while it wasn't 7 minutes faster like I did in Oregon, it was 5 to 6 minutes faster than my fastest non-current swim. So I will just say, all in all, my goal was sub 440. If you don't know, I went 4:33:01. 2 seconds shy of a sub 4:33. It could have been a 4:32. I did not know at the time. I probably could have ran 2 seconds faster somewhere in there. But that's the beauty of it. You never know until you're done. I didn't know I was 2 seconds shy of going sub 30 on that swim in Santa Cruz. But overall, a 4:33:01, which was amazing. That swim definitely helped me get below 440. But I will say, basically a 26-minute swim. I have swam 30 before. So if you add 4 minutes to that, or even 5 minutes or 6 minutes, I still would have come in sub 440. So I'm really happy with that 7-minute buffer there. And even with the current swim, I feel I can say really confidently that even if I swam a 33 or maybe a 34, I most likely would have broken 440. As far as how the swim went, it was really cool. You went in off a beach on this little tiny strip of island, I guess you'll call it, Wrightsville, and you had to swim out, make a right. And the thing about this swim is there are a lot of turns. You kind of follow a buoy line, then you make a left turn, and then you go down some buoys, then you make a right turn, and then you make another left turn before getting out. So there are a lot of turns, but the buoys were extremely easy to see. The sun does not come up in your face at all. So seeing the buoys was great. The water was very choppy, which I was really surprised. The first half of the swim, when you're really kind of in the more open part of this bay, I was taking in a ton of water. Water was coming over my head in different directions, not really even able to anticipate it. So I took a lot of water in. When I was trying to take a breath in, I swallowed some water and would really have to focus on not panicking. Just take those 2 more strokes and then breathe and hope that I was going to get a breath. But this, I would say, is the calmest swim I have ever had. I kind of went into this really, really focused on swimming calm, swim easy in the beginning. Don't go out too hard to the point where you feel like you can't catch your breath, which is exactly what I did at Morro Bay. Granted, the water at Morro Bay was very cold. This water was much, much warmer. They say it was 67. I think that was maybe in the coldest points. I felt like this water was definitely over 70 degrees. It was easy to even get in without a wetsuit. So temperature was great. The current, I don't think I ever really felt like I had a current, but I knew there was a current because I was watching my watch and I could see my 500-yard splits and they were quicker. It was about a 121 per 100 and a 130 to 131 is more like what I swim. So there was definitely about 10 seconds per 100 yards that I was getting from the current. Came out of the swim feeling really good. This swim is different exit than I've ever had. You actually had to climb up a ladder, a wooden ladder next to a pier, up and out of the water. I've never had to do that. Usually you swim up onto something and kind of crawl your way up or go up some stairs. But this, you literally had to climb up a 2x4 wooden ladder out of the water and then get on a wooden deck or pathway, which was very, very slippery. So you had to be really careful kind of going through that and navigating it. And my watch clocked 0.34 or 35 of a mile, getting to transition and out onto the bike. So it is a long way. You run down a pathway. They did have wetsuit strippers, which I took advantage of. Worked out great, ran in, dropped down. 2 guys pulled the wetsuit off, handed it to me. And I actually started to roll it up as I ran. You had to run down a path. You ended up running across the street to a park. And during that time, I was rolling up my wetsuit, getting it organized because you needed to pack your wetsuit up and your goggles and your cap in a bag before you left transition because you were not coming back there. And the volunteers needed to be able to grab that and bring it to the end of the race. So That was a step where usually you take your wetsuit, throw it down, grab your bike, put your shoes on, get your helmet, grab your bike. You needed to pack up your stuff in transition to make sure that it was going to make it to the end of the race where you picked it up. But got into transition, felt really good. Actually sat down, put on my socks, put on my shoes, because you are not allowed to have your shoes clipped in at this race. Never had that happen or heard of that before at a race, but this specific 70.3 this year, no shoes clipped in. You had to put them on. You had to run out with your bike and then hop on. But all of that went super smooth. All right, well, let's talk about the bike portion of the race. It is a point-to-point race. Just pulled out my helmet. Looks like it is in good shape. It was in the bike box. Thank you to Rudy Project for all of the support they show me, as well as to OC Endurance, our tri club. If you guys are a tri club, make sure you get set up with Rudy Project for some really great discounts. But as far as the bike, it was very windy leading up to the race. I was a little concerned about how windy it was going to be on race day, because every day I was staying down by the beach and I would wake up and I would go for a ride or a run along where we swam, and every single flag that was along that coast was standing straight out towards the ocean, and there was massive wind blowing off coast, meaning when you got on the bike and you rode a very long way to Wilmington in that direction, you were going to be fighting a headwind. And race day, while it was much calmer than the days leading into the race, Thursday, I believe, was the coldest of all the days when I was there. It actually rained a little bit. It was overcast. It was extremely windy. Friday was actually the first day of the practice swim, and that was the coldest day of all of the days that I was there. It was in the low 60s and in the 48, 46 in the morning, and it was extremely windy. So when I went to the practice swim, I was freezing. And then Friday, it warmed up a little bit into the mid 60s. And then finally on Saturday, it was warmer. It was in the 70s that day, still 49 in the morning when I was headed to the start of the race. But the wind was much less. The flags were still blowing, but it was not near as bad as it was the previous days. But when you got on that bike and you left the beach and you rode a very long way in that wind, you fought the wind. I didn't feel like it was really, really bad. Overall, I was still able to keep up a really good mile per hour. I was targeting about 210 to 215 watts. That first 20 miles, I was well above my target. I was probably more like 230, 240, but I was amped. I was out of the water. I was on the bike. I was feeling fast. I had my disc. I was in my new setup that Jim worked with me on, and I was just feeling good. And there were a lot of people that I was passing. So I was just pushing much higher power than I should have. But as I settled in after that first 20 miles, I was really focused on that 210 to 215-ish range. And my miles per hour overall kind of stayed right around 23 and a half miles per hour overall. Finally, at about mile 50, you turned around and you were headed towards the coast. So you kind of went past Wilmington and then eventually turned around, then made your way back into downtown Wilmington. And when you made that turn, you felt that wind that you were fighting that whole time. And those last two bike segments, I went 24.59 and 26.83 in that final segment. So it was really, really moving. And I could definitely tell on the bike that I was working hard. My hamstrings, kind of in that attachment point right below your butt cheek, they were feeling pretty worked. I was actually a little concerned that hopefully I hadn't blown myself up on the bike. It was a time trial course, meaning you were aero pretty much the entire way. There was no real reason to sit up very often other than when you went across the bridges or over the railroad tracks. You pretty much were aero the entire time, and I felt that in my hamstrings. They were very sore, kind of coming off the bike. They just felt like I had worked really hard. And even after the race and yesterday, my hamstrings, kind of my butt, was the most sore it has probably ever been after a race. But I came off the bike and overall I felt good. I was really happy with my time. My goal was to come in and get off the bike in under 3 hours. When I came out of T2 and I looked at my watch, it was 2 hours, 58 minutes and 28 seconds, which is the fastest I have ever gotten out and off of the bike through T2 and on the run. So at that point, I knew if I could run a 140 or less, then I shouldn't break my 440 goal. I did have a little longer transition in T2. I love to keep that under 2 minutes, but I really had to pee. I did not pee on the bike. As far as fueling on the bike, I used 2 bottles, essentially my Aero bottle up front, which had 2 scoops of Vitargo, and then a bottle on the back, which I started using when that went empty. That had 2 scoops of Vitargo. I had a packet of Element in each one of those. And then I took 2 gels towards the end of the bike, one non-caffeinated from Morton, and then one caf about 20 minutes out when I was getting back downtown. We were moving really fast and coming in. I took a caffeinated gel so that I could get off and hit the run strong. But when I got to transition, I really had to go to the bathroom. So I had to stop in the porta potty. And what was probably 20 or 30 seconds felt like minutes. But overall, my T2 transition was 3 minutes and 2 seconds. Back up to my T1, which was a long run and had to fold up the wetsuit, all of that was 5 minutes and 42 seconds. On the run real quick, I ended up buying a pair of the new Nike Alpha Flies, kind of a last minute decision to go with these. I've been running in the Saucony Endorphin Speed Plus, but I happened to find these. And I had not actually seen a pair in 12 and a half. So I picked them up. I did a lot of my training runs prior to the race that week in Wilmington in these and felt confident. So decided to go with them. And overall, very, very happy with the choice. Felt super fast, super bouncy on the run. All right, time for the moment of truth. I'm going to pull the bike out and inspect it and hope that the frame is just fine. This case is amazing. Only issue I had traveling was when TSA opened it and put it back together. They did not quite seat it right. So the rotor on my disc was bumped or bent a little bit and that rubbed. Had to get that fixed when I was there. But I did not have the tool to remove my rotors coming home. But in the future, I will make sure that I bring it with me and I will always remove the rotors on my wheels when I travel so that they don't get dinged up. So I don't know if that's the case again getting home, but now I'm going to check out the frame real quick. Oh, that is not a good sign. I believe there might be a crack in my frame right here and right here. I can see a little black where the paint is off. Cannot tell if it's actually cracked or not. I'm gonna have to get a light. So this is the anti-crush bar. I can tell you that this is probably an indication that the bike took some hits. Well, unfortunately, there is some damage on the frame. I cannot tell exactly if it's cracked or not. Put some pressure on there. I'm going to have to take it to somebody who can look at it and tell me if it was just flexed so much that the paint cracked, or is the actual frame itself cracked. And it doesn't look like it's cracked all the way through. Maybe I can do some repair. Man, I'm going to need a bike sponsor is what I'm going to need if I'm going to keep traveling and doing these races. Who wants to step up? Anyways, back to the run. I've got the bike on the trainer, got the front wheel mounted, and I need to put the chain back on. The front disc is rubbing, so it looks like the rotor took some impact because that is definitely not moving smooth. So the bike did not have as good of a trip home as it had going, but thankfully it had that trip going. It was in pretty good shape. And now that I'm home, I have 7 weeks to La Quinta to get that figured out. But let's talk about the run. I got out and was feeling really, really good. There was a lot of energy around T2, lots of folks there cheering, and you kind of did this little out and back circle. So you went out, people saw you, you did this little circle, and you came back, and then folks could see you again. And then you pretty much ran down the center of town. I believe it's a street called Front Street. And that street was just kind of up and down and up and down. And the pavement was good, but then every so often there were lots of cobblestone sections, some rough sections. So you really needed to watch your step. And this run, which I anticipated would be extremely flat and feel really fast, didn't really feel that way. I felt like the course was kind of always either in a little bit of a down or a little bit of an up. So you felt like you were running on these false flats and working harder than you should. But overall, pacing, when I finished, I actually paced a lot faster than I thought. I felt like I was looking at my watch a lot and seeing 7:30s, 7:40s, and I would work really hard to get it back down into that low 7 to 7:10. And I just felt like it was a constant struggle to get that pace down in the low 7. But overall, I ran 6:28, 6:57, 7:11, 7:09, 7:14. And then there was a weird double checkpoint or timing mat, which everyone had a slow time through there. It said 13:16, which was really weird. It was about 1 mile out from the finish. So you went from 11.9, and then at 12.1, there was another mat. And for some reason, that mat clocked me at 13:16. No idea why. But that last portion to the finish line, which was a mile, was a 6:49, and overall came in at a 7:11 pace, which is the fastest I have ever run. So I had my fastest bike, which I averaged 23.71 miles per hour. I had never broken 23, and super happy to get a 23.71 mile per hour. And then a 7:11 average pace for the run put me in at 1:34.33, which is the fastest I have ever run. And I was so glad to see that finish line because I was giving it everything I had to kind of maintain that pace. And it felt like I was starting to get passed by some people, and then I would battle back. It was really cool to see some people that came by me on the bike, and I would go with them for a little while and then make the decision, you know what, I'm not going to go that fast. I'm going to go ahead and let them go. And then to actually wheel some of those folks back in on the run feels so good. So when I crossed the finish line, I immediately turned around to see what that finish time was. And I was in my mind, I knew I was going to be below 4:40, but I was just questioning, was I going to be below 4:35? Could I actually get below 35? And ultimately 4:33.01, and just super happy. When I actually crossed the finish line, I was in third in my age group. And then over the next half hour, I dropped to fourth. And then I dropped to fifth. So then when I was in fifth, there was this kind of anxiety or kind of constant watching. And then once an hour of me passing the finish line had gone by, I started to feel a little better, and I maintained my fifth place position, which one, broke the 440, and two, the second goal, which was really my main goal for this year, was to get on the podium of a 70.3 and end up with an award.
From Wilmington, California, Chris Elmore, fifth place.
Second, from Athens, Georgia, James Berry, 429 plus.
And the bonus to that was hoping to get a slot to the 70.3 World Championships in Spain next year in November 2025. And when they announced the slots for my age group, there were 3 slots, and I was in the 5th spot.
And we've got 3, the Schleyer man. Paul Schleyer, yes. James Berry. No, thank you, James. Russell Dalma. Russell, come on in. I gotta tell you, this room has its advantages, and the fact that you're all within like 120, come on over here, 120 degrees of my sight, it makes it way easier. That's number 1, Matt Summer. Number 2, Chris Elmore. Number 3, that is it.
And fortunate for me, the first two guys did not need their spots or want them. So it rolled to third, fourth, and fifth, and I secured my spot to the World Championships. Well, the bike is back together. And looking at the frame, taking some photos, it does look like it's cracked. I'm gonna have to take it down to Raul, have him take a look at it. It doesn't feel weak, but maybe I can get it patched. I'm not really sure at this point, but that's unfortunate. Kind of a killer to a great weekend, but not gonna worry about it yet. Gonna get a second opinion. This is the medal for the race. It's a pretty cool medal. It is a 15 with the North Carolina flag in it. It has the battleship, the USS North Carolina, on it, which was the backdrop for the race downtown, along with a dolphin. So this is one of the cooler medals I've gotten. It actually kind of shiny in there. You can see that, a little glittery-ish. So it's a really nice medal. And awards was very cool to go in there knowing that I was actually going to receive my first podium. And here is the award for fifth place, 49 to 45, Ironman 70.3 North Carolina, which was really quite cool to get to stand up kind of on the podium and accept the award. And here is the coin for Spain, which I will add to my collection now of 3. I would have had 4 had I done New Zealand this year, but made that choice not to, so we have 3 coins and my official qualifier certificate. So all in all, it was an amazing race, an amazing weekend. Bummer about the frame. I will get that checked out and let you guys know what happens. But I just want to say thank you to all of you for all of the support, all of the comments you have left, and just throughout the years, either on social media or on YouTube, just the support you have all shown me. And thank you to all of my supporters, Varlo and Synergy, Vitargo and The Feed and Rudy Project. Just thanks to all of you. I greatly appreciate you sticking with me through the journey. And now we've got to set a new goal. What will that new goal be? I'll let you know in the next video.